Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kim Bussey. I'm the Key Relationship Manager here with Omnia, and we're so excited that you joined us today for our webinar, Move Your Mission Forward with Succession Planning. And before I begin, I just want to do a couple of quick housekeeping. At the top of your screen, there is an icon with a hand raised. If you can hear me, go ahead and raise your hand. This is going to be great communication as well. If you agree or disagree with something I said, if you need me to speak up or speak a little bit softer, speed up, slow down, just let me know. Because everyone doesn't have audio, if you want to give me some laughter and applause, it's always welcome, as well as at the screen at the bottom. If you have any comments or questions, please go ahead. Type them in there. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, but we also want to talk with you a little bit as we go along. Our webinars are designed to be interactive. If you haven't joined us before, welcome to the first time. We do offer these webinars once a month, and all of our webinars are recorded and available for viewing. If you don't follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, go ahead and do that. You'll receive some great notifications as well as when the recordings are available for viewing. So let's go ahead and get started. So succession planning. Some of the questions that we always ask ourselves is, why should I have a succession plan? Who are the best candidates? What if my team thinks I have favorites? What happens when I retire? Why do I need to think about my retiring employees now? What if that person doesn't work out? All of these are great and valid points. And if you've thought any of these, I want to let you know now that you are not alone. Many companies struggle with these same thoughts and questions. And what we're going to talk about today is that succession planning, what positions you can consider for when you're doing that planning and how it can impact your profitability. But before we begin, remember, interactive. So first question I have for you is, when do we typically think about replacing key people? Is it when someone retires, when someone leaves, or I don't think about it? Go ahead and select your answer. And then the next question I have is, who makes the best successor? Is it existing employees? They already know the culture. They're in like Flynn. Outside candidates because we want fresh ideas. They're the best, or it depends on the position. Go ahead and select which one that you think. I'm going to jump back over to that first question. So overwhelmingly, the only time that we really start thinking about replacing key people is when they leave. That is typically when we're right underneath the gun. Oh, shoot, who are we going to replace this person with? But we really need to start thinking about succession planning way before that person leaves. Because then we're caught in this quandary of who does the best successor make. 33% is existing employees. They know the culture. But overwhelmingly, about 63% of you say, it depends on the position. But more importantly, depending on the position, it depends on the best candidate. But a lot of times, because we're waiting until that last moment of when it leaves, we really don't have that time to plan through it. So what we're really going to think about today is, where do we want to go with this? What is that roadmap for succession planning? And we offer that. We're going to be talking about some questions today to ask yourself as part of that succession planning. We're going to give some practical tips and tools for that. And once again, share your best practices. I always like to say this is kind of like Vegas. What's said here stays here. So please feel free, if you've uncovered a pitfall, an obstacle to succession planning, or you're like, man, I've just got the best program, share it with us. We want to hear that. Because let me tell you, if you think succession planning is hard, you're not alone. In a recent survey I read, 34% of executives can effectively identify future leaders. Only 34%. And when asked about their succession plan and how they would rate it, 66% rated their plans as fair or worse. It's almost in a direct correlation of how can you have a great succession plan if you don't recognize who our future leaders are. And that same group of respondents, only 1% believe that their succession plans are effective. So why is it? Does that mean succession planning is just the latest trend or buzzword? Why should we worry about it? Well, first, let's define what it is. And succession planning is a process, and I'm going to emphasize that again, process for identifying and developing internal people with the potential to fill key business leadership roles in the company. So, when you hear the word process, what do you think about? For me, I think of something that's ongoing. It's not something that we can start and not move forward with. It's very, very important to realize that when you're talking about planning, unlike certain things where we set goals, with succession planning, you may be putting something in place with really the potential may not be available for that person to move into that role until 5, 6, 7 years from now. But we have to have it. So why do we need to have it? Well, first, I want you to think about when that definition talked about key leadership positions, right? So let's talk about what do you think some of those key leadership positions in your company are? Is it the CEO? Is it the CFO? Is it a department head? What are those positions? Go ahead and type them in. What you think those key, and once again, it's those key leadership positions that are needed. And I see many of you, while you're thinking about what those positions are, you're thinking about 75% should only be concerned. So say it's false. So we see president. Type in this top box. Melissa, I'm going to go ahead. Thank you. So we've got managers and supervisors, department heads. We've got president, everyone that we've already mentioned. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Who else do we have? I know that Melissa said that we have the president. We see someone who said the janitor. That was interesting for a key leadership position. But why is that? Oh, I see managers are overall coming through. See some directors, CEOs, CFOs, presidents, head of things, leaders. So overall leadership. But we're also seeing that 83% of you are saying you should only be concerned. That's false. You should be more concerned about positions in key leadership. And I love that, Mary. Absolutely. When we really look at succession planning, we can't focus just on key leadership roles. So it's very important. Your CEO, your executive leadership, your senior leadership drives the train. They cast the vision. If you take out that vision caster, then you have a group of people that are working together, but the company may struggle. Think about Apple, Steve Jobs, great leader. They've gone through some very difficult times that he's no longer there once he passed away. So you have to know who's going to fill those positions. We have a client who has started grooming his successor 20 years ago and knows that that person has been grown and understands not only the job duties, but also the culture. So when this person has taken over, it was like nothing happened. It was a different face that was in that office. But the employees felt very comfortable because they had known this person. They understood that he was embracing the vision. But if you don't have you have a key position open, it causes stress. It causes a demotivation of your team because what happens is they're like, oh, well, where are we going to go? Is this new person going to change to the direction? Oh, whenever they bring in new leadership, what does that do for us? We either have to get with the program or we've got to move on. But I don't want us just to focus today on that key leadership. I want us to think of succession planning, just as Mary said, that applies to all employees. And let's look at it today as a process for identifying and developing internal people with the potential to fill positions in the company. It's very important for us as leaders to be prepared and have our teams positioned for promotion. When they are positioned for promotion, whether it's an upward promotion or a lateral promotion, it protects our company's success. It protects how they're going to look at their career. Do I have the potential to move up? Am I wanted, or am I just another cog in the wheel? And we have to know that the importance of knowing what positions are going to be open and having a plan to fill them is critical. So why plan? We plan because it increases the availability of experienced and capable employees that are prepared to assume roles when they become available. Now, when I talk to clients here at Omnia, one of the number one pains that they're experiencing is that they have an opening, but no one is qualified for it, or they have someone who wants to move up, but the leader doesn't think that they're ready. Or I hired someone with potential and trained them, and now they're not happy because there's not an opening. So they're planning to leave. Raise your hand if you've ever experienced any of those three thoughts. I've got an opening, but I have no one qualified for it. I have someone who wants to move up, but I don't think they're ready. Or I've hired someone, I've trained them, and now they're not happy. I see hands coming up all over the place. Once again, you're not alone. And they're all valid. But we can't use that to stop us from planning. Planning is the key to success. And it all starts at day one of the interview process. We have to understand, what are the positions in our company? Where do we want to flow the employee development through? And am I hiring for a position now, or am I hiring for a person for a position in the future? And then how do I keep them engaged? And with Omnia, we can assist with all of that, from the selection and understanding who they are, why are they looking, their general mental aptitude, to what's their leadership style. How can I coach them? How can I teach them and develop them in those areas? Because let's face it, we all have those strengths and challenges, right? Some of us are natural, so to speak, leaders, but then our greatest challenge may be so aggressive that we come across, so assertive we come across as aggressive. We have to be coached with that. Maybe we're hiring someone to be a CSR, but they want to really be a salesperson, but they've never done sales before. How do I coach that person that I'm hiring for their potential in the position that they're not really great suited for, but they have to be successful to move up? As leaders, it all comes down to you. It all starts, as I said, with that plan. So we have to lay the foundation. And this is what we're going to talk about today with the roadmap to success if you downloaded it. Is your plan is what, when, why, and how. Yeah, there's nowhere, but think about it. What do I want to achieve? So when you sit down to start your succession planning, ask yourself, what do I want to achieve? When do I want it done? Why do I want it done? And how do I want it done? By knowing that before you begin to implement the plan, it's going to allow you to really dive deeper, to start setting that foundation for your succession planning. And you want to write it down, because let's face it, a goal that isn't written down is what? It's a dream. A plan that's not written down, you forget some details. You want to ask others for input. And then you want to implement it. Keyword there, got to implement. So, can you list all of your daily responsibilities in 10 minutes? Yes, no, maybe, but I definitely need more time to think about it. If you left, could someone take your position with ease? Absolutely. I share everything. If you do, you are one of those rare leaders, almost like the unicorn, because we all like to keep one little bit tucked in our back pocket, right? Or, nope, I'm irreplaceable, I'm keeping it that way. Or they could, but it wouldn't be easy. And then if you had to replace yourself today, what skills would be needed? And I'm asking these things to really start the wheels churning. So about 50% of you said no. There's no way I can list all of my daily responsibilities in 10 minutes. And yeah, people could take my position, but it wouldn't be easy for them. Overwhelmingly 84%. And that for those of you, thank you. So I'm seeing adaptability, understanding. There's too many to count. Time management, collaboration, conflict management, multitasking, time management. But all of these are popping back up. Great. Let me ask yourself, did you know all of those skills when you were in the position, when you first started where you were? Probably not. And some of it comes naturally with, I feel very comfortable with adapting to different situations. Other like conflict management, listen, we're all adults here. Can't we just get along? But they're key, they're crucial. You have to understand that, keeping up with technology. And you may say, okay, what does any of this have to do with succession planning? It falls right back into that what. You have to identify your needs. What do I need? Do I need someone who's a clone of me? Or are we looking for something to take us to offset and take us into a new direction? Who can meet those needs? Is it someone who has the potential internally? Or is it something that you may need to hire someone from the outside, bring them in to train? And where are the vulnerabilities? Now, the vulnerabilities and downfalls is where most people don't want to look because it's hard. They want to say, I know what I need. I want someone just like me because I do the job and I do it well. Well, think back to when you started doing the job. What were some of your stressors? What are some of the things that if you could go back and tell yourself 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 months ago, what would you tell the new inexperienced to that role you? And then when you understand what that is, now you can say, okay, those are my vulnerabilities. Those are the downfalls. And I can't say, it can't be like, watch out for that Carrie because, she will be in your office all the time. She'll wear you out. Avoid her. But maybe it is that, how do I wish I could go back and tell myself, organize yourself, put it on your calendar. Please put it on your calendar because you're going to forget. Or it's going to be crucial for you to understand not to be best friends with everyone that you work for. You're going to have some conflict management. Let me teach you how to do it. But we can't start any type of plan, whether it's succession or not, is without that identification. But most people don't want to look at it because it's hard, right? It's hard because I can't, and going back to the poll, many of you couldn't tell us everything you do in 10 minutes. There's so much that has to be done and remember everything I need to do. So how can I really sit there and say, you have to do this? Maybe it's because of that environment, but maybe it's because of really the 4 stages. There are 4 stages of learning. So unconscious incompetence, you don't know what you don't know. Or conscious incompetence of, I know what I don't know. Conscious competence is when you know what you know. But when we reach this stage of succession planning, when we're really taking a step back and saying, okay, we need to groom our team, we need to groom our employees to understand exactly where they need to go. How do I do it? What are the needs of that position? You can't look at a job description from 5 years ago. You couldn't even look at a job description for 2 years ago. You really have to say, okay, what are the needs? And if it's my position, what do I need to replicate? Someone successful. If it's a CSR position or a sales position or CEO, talk to them, identify those needs. And 9 times out of 10, what you get is, I don't know how I do that. It's because we live in that unconscious competence state. Once we've learned everything, it becomes second nature. It's ingrained in us. So I just do it. I don't know how I do it. I just do it. That's why it's so important for that first stage to be the what, to identify it. Because if you try to sit down today and make a list of everything you're supposed to do or what every position is supposed to do, you're going to see that there's some ebb and flow to it. There's some differences. We have to understand that. And we can't assume that everyone knows what's required of them. So it really takes time to think through every step. It becomes part of a development tool, but you have to identify that. And once you identify that, then you can start identifying some of those natural behavioral traits that are associated with that position. For instance, I'm big picture and visionary. Trust me, you don't want me doing your accounting work, your quality assurance on a day-to-day basis. Not me, not something I'm comfortable with. Could I do it for a while and do it well? Yeah, but I'm kind of like, we're 90% of the way there. We're moving on. For someone else, they're going to be like, no, it has to be 100% accurate. It's going to stress me out. It's going to stress out that person. So identify the need, identify the behaviors, and then you have to identify when. How quickly do we want this to happen? Because timing is everything. And what we're experiencing now and what's happening across industries is that they have a workforce that's retiring. Maybe so your top producer has been with you for 10 years, your top salesperson, is that they're retiring in about 3 years. Do we start looking for someone to replace them now? And if so, how do I keep that person motivated to take over that book of business? Or, oh shoot, we have an open position. Or we're going to have an open position in 6 months. Where do we go from here? So once you understand what the needs, when do you want it? It's going to allow you to create that game plan. Is it a 3 to 5 year strategic plan? Because succession planning should be reviewed every time you look at your strategic and your business plan. It's going to help you streamline those training processes. And once again, the interview process. Here's the opportunities. And it keeps people motivated. Once again, it depends on how quickly it has to happen. And most companies think about, wait until the last minute. From poll 1, we saw that. So we have to start building that foundation. We have to understand when this is going to happen so we can convey that. And then once we've conveyed it, we have to really find out what the biggest obstacle to that is. Because I hear a lot of times that, oh, we don't have time for succession planning. I don't have time for employee development. It takes too long. Or I think this person is going to do well, but every time I try to talk to them, they don't. Well, it's not time isn't the biggest obstacle. It's fear. Think about it. Especially if you're a senior level leader. You may say, this is my legacy. I can't just hand it off to somebody else. Or you're starting to teach your employees some of your responsibilities so that they can prepare to moving forward. And you're thinking, you're not doing it the way I did it. What are you thinking? Stop! Or what do I do now? I've trained my replacement. What's going to happen to me? I know I said I was ready to retire in 3 years, but this person's come on board and they've caught on pretty darn quickly. So what happens? And then from a profitability and a financial standpoint, can we afford to have multiple people with the same responsibilities? The answer is yes, you can. You just have to work it around it. Maybe you have that person come in who's shadowing that producer and you're talking with them and you're understanding and you're explaining, this is where we need to go. This is where we want to go. And this is what the pay structure is going to look like. And maybe it's a base salary. And as they start bringing on information, then they move forward. But the thing is succession planning isn't about you. And a lot of times as leaders, we look at it that way. It's all about me. How is it going to benefit me? Because that's who we are naturally, right? The Whitman factor, what's in it for me? And it's natural. But it can't stop us from planning. It can't stop us from evaluating. And sometimes that fear is something that, I really want them to like me. So being just open, what's keeping you from planning for the future? And then who do you decide to develop for leadership? And maybe that's the issue. Maybe you're not quite sure who to develop. Is it those top performers? Is it people who've expressed interest? Do I look at everyone? No one. I'm looking outside the company. But share, what's keeping you from planning? Once again, it could be that I just don't know. Lack of knowledge. Maybe it's, I don't know, someone help me out here. Just time. And so I see overall 58% is saying you got to develop everyone. Well, it's hard, right? Josephine is sharing, I give people a job description, they stick to it. And now how do I work around it? Well, one, if you've created a job description and the job description changes and they say, I don't do that, that's going to give you a clear indication right there that they're probably not going to be someone you want to move up in the company. And also how it's presented. So in a job, it's always great to say, I call it the legalese of, this job description, job responsibilities are not limited to, or your supervisor may ask you to do additional things. But one of the workarounds is to say, hey, I know we haven't done this job description and looked at it in 4 to 5 years. Let's talk about it. What else are we doing? Is there something else that we need to add to it? Is it something that we need to take away? Maybe you say, answer faxes and you haven't had a fax machine in your office for 5 years. Thank you for sharing. So what's keeping us from planning for the future? Too much happening in the spur of the moment. I don't have time. And I'm doing more with less. I don't have time or resources to stop and develop. Not sure. Here's what I would say is that when you have that plan, it's going to allow you to identify the resources. And so many people feel like I have to do it all. It's my job to do it. Not necessarily. Going back to the what, when you're identifying the needs and you're thinking who can meet the needs, the other thing that you want to take a look at is who can help us meet these needs. As leaders, we take on so much. And we are ultimately responsible for everything. We want the performance of our team, the understanding, but you may have someone who's in a position who loves it, that says, I don't ever want to move from this position. It's amazing. And they're phenomenal. That is the person that you're going to use to train for that position. So you have a star account manager, you have a star salesperson, you have a star team leader, and they love what they're doing. Use them. They're in the role. They can understand it. They can mentor that other person. Yes, you still need to check in with them, with those people that you're developing. They want to know that the managers are bought into it. But talk with them. Maybe you do something like we do. So we offer these monthly leaderships. I know at Google, a lot of times that they'll have someone who's an expert at technology and they'll do a lunch and learn. They use their employees. They know their strengths and their challenges, and they allow other employees to share. It goes right back to developing your team and succession planning, because if someone's really interested in moving into that position or moving up, guess what? They're going to want to take as much continuous education. It's also going to give you a great indication of what is their self-motivation. Do they take the initiative, or are they content to be there? And if they're content to be there, why are they content to be there? Not everyone wants to be that manager. Not everyone wants to be that top person. Maybe they're just passionate about customer service. And I love talking to our customers. And that's who I want to be. Don't take me out of my comfort zone. Remember, natural behaviors. Recognizing that as you're developing them, using them as a resource so you're keeping them engaged and motivated, but you're not necessarily moving them up. So it's very interesting. So many of you said everyone. But what if I took that away and just said, who do you decide to develop for leadership? Top performers or people who expressed interest? Would that have changed your answer? Because a lot of times what we find is that the easy way for succession planning is to say, Joe is doing a great job and we're just going to promote him. And it happens a lot. Quite a bit is in the athletic world. So some of you may recognize these people. We have Magic Johnson, we have Phil Esposito, we have Larry Bird, we have Isaiah Thomas, we have Ted Williams. So what do all of these people have in common? Anybody familiar with sports at all? If you are, you're going to see some Hall of Famers. You're going to see some, I don't know, star athletes, amazing people, right? Led their team to victory. I know when I was growing up, yes, I'm going to tell a little bit about my age, the Larry Bird was just phenomenal. He was the athlete, Wayne Gretzky, phenomenal. Everyone was like, woohoo, this is who we want, right? But they all have something else in common. They all became coaches. And if you compare their coaching career to their athletic career, most people will say they failed at a coach or mediocre at best. Magic Johnson had a 5'11" coaching record. He realized, okay, I'm not a coach. He became part owner. But once again, it's that star performer syndrome. They were great at their job. They understood what they needed to do to perform. They hit the home runs. They sunk the baskets. They made the goals. They were great at what they do. So they have to be the next generation of leaders, right? Not necessarily. Great players, great performers are great for various reasons. Maybe it's that talent. Maybe it's the drive. Maybe it's the work ethic. Maybe it's all about me. I'm going to reach my goal. But a lot of times what happens without coaching, without development, without succession planning, we move a top performer into a management role and they become mediocre because one, they're working outside their natural behaviors, or two, there's a lack of understanding. I don't understand why I did it. Why can't you do it? And they lack the patience or the knowledge on how to teach them to grow into the role. So we can't just look at top performers when we're looking at succession planning. We have to analyze and look at the strengths and weaknesses of everyone, because a great example of that is Phil Jackson. So one of his quotes is, performance does not equal leadership. Great leaders understand their strengths and challenges. So Phil Jackson, I know when I started researching, talking to my husband who is a huge sports fanatic, I didn't even realize that he played basketball professionally. I just knew him as this phenomenal coach. The Chicago Bulls taking Michael Jordan time and time again, how he coached with the Lakers, just this phenomenal, the Zen master, very calm. And then as I was talking, and I'm like, he's a great coach, wow, where did they find him? And my husband was saying, he used to play basketball and he wasn't that great at it. He was okay, but he was really limited in what he did offensively. He had these massively long limbs that helped him, but it wasn't his sheer talent that got him where he needed to be. He compensated with intelligence. He worked hard on the defense to be a okay coach, but okay player, but his greatness came when he was put in the position that maximized his strengths. And what made him such a good coach was that he was prepared. He had a plan. He knew the strengths of the individuals. He maximized those for the betterment of the team. He communicated. He managed that conflict. He knew what his strengths and challenges were. So it goes back to the what. What do I need? What are our vulnerabilities? Maybe it's you as a leader because you can't coach. Or maybe it's that executive leader who can't coach. Or I just think I'm great, right? But what are you looking for? Identify those. When do we need it by is going to be crucial. Why do we want it? And then, how do I get there? So, how do you get there? Well, there's a couple of things. So as you're growing, as you're understanding who you are, as you're adapting, there are a couple of do's and don'ts. So one, know your people. Going back to Phil Jackson, he knew who he was hiring. He had some pretty strong personalities, right? And he had to take those strong personalities, build them up into be the superstars, but also to put them into some great positions for the best of the team. It's the same thing when we're planning for succession. Whether it's moving someone up into a key leadership role or maybe it's moving someone just into a different position, what's best for the team and how do we convey it? You want to give equal opportunities. And I want to sit here for just a moment because this is key, especially when we're talking about internal employees. So a lot of times, a show of hands, how many of you delegate extra projects to the same person? Most of you. Whether you raise your hand or not, just think about it. Think about whenever you have a special project or work that needs to be done, do you have that go-to person that I know if I give this to Cindy, she's going to take care of it. If I give this to, Bill, he's going to take care of it. They're my go-to person. I don't have to worry about it. Now, think about this. Do you have that one person that you just kind of cringe giving any type of additional responsibilities for? Maybe it's because they are going to look at you like you have 10 heads and say that's not within my job description. Or everything that they touch, you feel like you have to go back and redo. You've got to give people equal opportunities. Once again, for a couple of different reasons. One, for motivation. You want to keep your team motivated. You want to keep them engaged. But the other thing, too, is that someone may be very successful at one project. You may uncover and identify those special needs and those special talents through those projects. Plus, it avoids burnout of your top performers and it manages the process. Because a lot of times when we continue to give people extra training, what happens is everybody else says, oh, well, Carrie's the golden child. So she gets everything. She gets the extra training. And so I don't really need to go above and beyond because when the promotion comes up, I just know Carrie's going to get it because Carrie gets everything. And Carrie may be thinking, I better get this promotion as much of the extra time, extra energy I've put it into it. If I don't get this promotion when it comes around, I'm going to be upset. And it creates this unfair advantage in an unfair process because guess what? Maybe Carrie isn't the best person to move up for that promotion. She's lacking some critical skills. So by managing the process, by being open and honest with the team and saying this is what you have. We all have the same opportunities where I'm going to give special projects. I'm going to meet with each of you on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. It allows you to understand, to get some feedback, not only from them, but from their peers or from other people who are managing. And it also allows them to know that, yeah, I think you're great at certain things, but here's some of your challenges. Going right back to that employee development, let me share with you. And you have to be prepared. So how you're looking to get this, you've got to be prepared for it. We want to make sure that you know what are those answers going to be? What are those questions going to be? Be prepared to really walk Carrie through to say, yes, you've done this and this, but this is the reason that you haven't received this. And then it allows you to look for potentials. Once again, not only in the interview and hiring process, but who is that person who I need some continuous education. I want to learn some more. How you don't get there is don't create unhealthy competition. And I'm a big fan of competition. I think friendly competition is great. Unhealthy competition is when you've created this environment that says, all right, we're going to have a promotion. I'm looking for one person. Connie, Bill, you're up. Whoever impresses me the most over the next 90 days is going to get it. Don't promote favoritism. And it goes back to giving the person the same thing. And have preconceived ideas about individuals. And Yolanda, this is a great thing. So her question is I have a team member that's great at anything she does, but doesn't want to advance. How do you handle that? Well, first, start with a conversation of what do you want to do? Where do you see yourself in this company? Because a lot of times when we think about succession planning, we look at people who exhibit the same behaviors as us, who has that same drive, who has that same motivation, but for some reason, they don't want the same things as we want. But we have to have that conversation. Maybe that conversation is, I love what I'm doing. I used to do management. I don't want it. It was stressful. I'm happy where I am, but I want to be the best of where I am. We need those stable people in those positions. We can't have a constant fluctuation of employees, especially in customer service facing. But it could be fear. Why am I doing this? Maybe there's some outside factors that they can't take on those additional opportunities right now. And we don't bring the personal life into the workplace, but we also know that there's things that happen, right? Talk with them, find out what's going on, eliminate those perceived ideas, and then don't make subjective decisions. A lot of times we really like someone. We want to make sure that they're growing. And I think that they can do it. Maybe it's that I know that they need the extra money, so we're going to give them the opportunity. Don't ignore those red flags. Have those subjective decisions. And one of the ways that you can do that is use a strength and challenge action plan. And very quick, write down, review your team. Once again, goes back to what am I looking for? Who are your team members? What are some of the strengths that you see? What are some of those challenges that you see? And then start a discussion. But by writing it down, by really taking that time and thinking about it, it's going to help you understand how to develop them. It's going to give you an idea of where to place them for that succession planning. If their strengths are conflict resolution, they've got some great technical skills. They exhibit a way to negotiate. They're very goal-driven. Those are strengths, but their challenges are they're impatient. Now you can start thinking about some action plans, some ways to train them, to coach them through it, but at the same time, you've got to bring them on board and talk with them. Now, I'm not going to say, show them, this is your strengths, these are your challenges. Now, this is how we're going to fix it. But you may say, Yolanda, I see these are the strengths that you bring into this position. Would you agree with that? Yes. These strengths would make you a natural candidate, and stress candidate, you don't ever want to promise a position, a natural candidate for this for moving up or into this position. But here are some of the challenges that we need to develop. And maybe it is something as simple as overpromising, under-delivering, or missing deadlines, you know, that you can, that those challenges are using calendar reminders, something as simple as that. Or you appear unorganized. How do you overcome that? And then create that action plan together. When you partner that with the development tools, whether it's continuous education, maybe it's some hard skills that they need. You've got these strengths, but you need a license to do this. How are you going to go back to it? Once again, now you've created this partnership and this succession planning, so you're not having to do it yourself. And then also what you can do is see where they take it. Because if they don't take it where you want them to go, then that's going to give you an indication of where they're going to, how they're going to proceed. So just because you're developing your team doesn't mean that you're responsible for their promotion. It's about understanding it. It's about who knows what's going on. And does it work? Well, let me share a success story with you. This is Colleen Barrett. Show of hands, how many of you know who Colleen Barrett is? Raise your hand. Not seeing any hands raised. There's, oh, one person. Woohoo! This is who Colleen Barrett was. One, she was the Outstanding Woman in Aviation in 2007. She was named to Forbes' list of 100 most powerful women, not once, but twice. From 86 to 2008, she served in Southwest Airlines leadership, and she was instrumental in creating the Southwest customer service model, which, as you know, Southwest customer service model is phenomenal. Amazing. I know myself, if I can fly Southwest, that's who I want to fly with. I love their customer service. Great. What does that have to do with succession planning? Well, glad you asked. In 1967, Colleen started off her career as an executive assistant in an established law firm. And she got the joy of being assigned to an attorney who was disorganized, who was helping create a new airline. Who was that attorney? Herb Kelleher, founder of Southwest, right? She grew in her role with Southwest. She grew in her role from executive assistant in 1967. And as Herb grew, they actually took a leave of absence from this law firm that's still in effect today. But she grew within her role from executive assistant to creating this customer service model. And she actually, when she was finally promoted, her last promotion, he would ask her, what do you want to be your title? And because she was so passionate about customer service, she said, I want to be vice president of customers, really so that she could really push through her passion of the service model. But she grew in that role not only because of her self-drive, but because Herb recognized her potential. He offered her opportunities. He gave her room to grow. He coached, corrected, and then found a successor in the leadership team. So remember, going back to that, succession planning is a process. It isn't a 6-month, 3-year, 10-year, one-and-done task to complete. Oop, good. She's done. I don't have to plan anything else. It takes constant recognition and refinement to continue and maximize your company's success as you plan. It takes time. So please be encouraged that you're going to make mistakes as you look at succession planning. And yes, you may have someone leave. But if you give them something to be passionate about, you offer that feedback, you recognize their potential, you could have your next Colleen, who started off as an executive assistant to VP, Forbes 100 Most Powerful Women, twice. So I want to go ahead. I know our time is almost up, but does anyone have any questions? Please go ahead and put it in. I know Josephine had some questions about, how do we reward them? Is it money? Is it just verbal? Really depends on the person. A lot of that has to do with, some people are motivated by money and gift cards and recognition. Some people want very job specific information. They want to know who they are, and what they're doing, and moving forward where they go. So any questions, go ahead and still type them in. I'm going to move this box up a little bit. As you're typing them in, we do have, if you did not get a chance to download it, we do have that roadmap to succession planning, the what do you want to achieve, when do you want it done, why, who do you want to do it, and how do you do it? All of those steps right there for you to write that out, to talk about it. You can download it. We also have that Strength and Challenges action plan and the development action plan that was added, as well as our presentation. So go ahead, let me know if you have any questions. One of the questions I typically get asked is, who's in charge of succession planning? Is it the executive leadership? Is it the training department? It's a combination. Where it really goes is through this process of maybe the training department recognizes it, they put a plan in place, but if senior leadership doesn't buy into it, it's going to be difficult to move it forward. So it's definitely something that you want to think about. But maybe you're a department head and you want to say, I just love this and I'm going to create my own succession plan. Great. Use the roadmap to success. It will help keep your employees engaged, and engaged employees drive your business. And unfortunately, only about 30% of employees are engaged, which is another topic for another webinar. Check it out. So once again, any questions? If not, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of our webinar today. We have our final webinar of the year in December, and it's actually what can behavioral insight really do for you. So if you want more information about, okay, you have some leadership tools, really what does it mean, join us next month. Once again, follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I hope to talk to you soon. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you for joining us.